have the floor now. Pledge Moment of silence, please. Thank you. This meeting is being called in accordance with the provision of the Open Public Meetings Act, and the announcement of this has been mailed to the local paper and to the clerks of the borough of Belmar. And this meeting, after the board has the meeting, we will look for a subsequent meeting.
Commissioner Lynch?
Here.
Commissioner Orchard?
Here.
Commissioner Sharp?
Here.
Commissioner Ramey?
Here.
Commissioner McCracken?
Here.
Commissioner Masano?
Here.
Commissioner Casterly?
Here.
Okay, we're going to start with a workshop. We have the two principals from Geronimo Engineers, thank you, to talk about the facade of the building and what their recommendations might be. So Dominic, Pat, you're on.
It's Lou. I am Lou Geronimo. I'm one of the principals of Geronimo Architects, and Pat Fusco is our chief architect. We've prepared a series of proposals for some of the corrective work to the exterior of the building. Pat is going to make that presentation.
I also want to say that this is the firm that took us all the way through the steps of putting a new roof on. And we're very happy with the result, and that's why we use it.
We also took, acting for when the issue with regard to this came up, we did some extra studies to try to assist you in making a decision on which way you wanted to go, just to prepare yourself, because the requirements that were first given to us would not have achieved. So you'll hear from Pat on how we done this. We have 2 copies? Yeah, sure. I think we made 6 copies of
Right now, we're just investigating.
We're just investigating. This is really what we've done is we've taken 3 areas, 3 different approaches of addressing issues at different levels of scale, and giving you an idea of the costs that were involved. And as I indicated before, I will discuss the details of each direction has a different. It's a little more involved
Pat, if I may ask, we had some people here with some hearing limitations, so if you can project your voice.
Yeah, I've been told I speak pretty loudly here.
Then you're at the right place.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, this evening, folks. As it was mentioned, we were basically hired a couple of months ago to look at the problems that you're facing with the building. We've taken made copies of the drawings that we were able to get from Paul. We've studied the structure of the building. Certainly the structure is fine in terms of the general structure of the building, but the composition of the building itself, it has shortcomings in the sense of the way the exterior wall is built, okay? And I'll start there because the building itself has aside from the fact that it's a concrete building, very solidly built, the exterior wall, the brick that you see on the exterior wall, has an interior wall that is made out of block. Okay, those two pieces of construction are tied together. Okay, so anything that happens to the exterior wall may affect the interior wall. This is why sometimes you get leaks of air or water coming through the wall, because there really isn't any barrier in between. So the exterior wall and the interior wall are made together, and we're concerned about compromising the entire construction. That's why the proposal we're going to give to you addresses that issue. So when we started looking at, obviously, we did a laser scan of the building. We have photographs of all the conditions, and it looks like you have water issues, water penetrations through the wall that over time, through the freeze-thaw cycle, which over the winter, water gets behind the brick. When water freezes, it expands, pushing the brick out. Okay, so that's the reason why you see all the cracking and all the discoloring of the brick, and that's why at those areas where the brick seems to be bulging out is right where it's being held in place by a steel lintel. So because the water is sitting on top of the steel frame, water collects there, it expands there, and that's where you see the bulging out. Okay, so without saying when something may happen, because I can't predict it. I don't bet on anything. It's my nature, and I can't exactly tell you when it happened. We believe that at some point in the near future, you may have bricks popping off of this building. Okay, and that could cause a whole myriad of problems. Aside from the fact that they cause people, injury to people walking around it, it will start to deteriorate the interior wall of the building. In which case, you're going to need the interior walls of the buildings are going to start to basically deteriorate, which will allow moisture to come in and air to come in. So you're going to have heat loss, and it's going to compromise the interior space of the units. Okay, so with that being said, we have taken it on. We've taken an approach to, first of all, a proposal. You see the three alternates. Alternate A is just to provide a series of scaffolding around the perimeter, so in case something does fall, you're not compromising visitors, staff, or residents from being hit by the falling brick. So that scaffolding, and you'll see it on buildings that are being renovated all over the place. We do a lot of work in New York City. There's always scaffolding on these buildings because there's a law in New York that requires you to take care of masonry buildings over a 7-year period.
So have it in 9th and Main right now with the old bank plan. Okay, scaffolding over the sidewalk to protect people's walking.
And the scaffolding, can remain there, for as long as until you get to a point where you're going to repair the facade. The scaffolding could be done neatly. Doesn't necessarily need to look like somebody just threw it up there. So there's very clean scaffolding. You can put some covering on it just to give it a little bit of an attractive look, if you will. But it's going to be scaffolding. But it's going to, you also going to understand that it's there for your protection. It's not there to make the building look bad or look good or whatever, but it's there just for protection. Because we're concerned about liability here. Liability for the ownership of the building, and for the safety of the residents and of the public. So with that being said, we took upon, and we've given you an estimate of what alternate A will cost to do that. Going beyond that, we believe that for long term, we can protect the building from the surface from collapse by putting on these struts these metal struts along the building that are fastened to the structure of the building. Because at each floor level, you have concrete, and that concrete is pretty stable. That concrete is solid. So we would attach those struts to the brick, not to the brick, but to the concrete frame itself, and that would hold the brick in place. Okay, so at a regular interval, 12 inches on center, you would get these channels that would hold the brick in place. So it would keep the brick from collapsing and coming off the building. And that's alternate B, and that's on all 4 sides. Okay, so alternate C was to go one step further and to actually put a new facade on the exterior of one of the more critical sides, which would be the north side. That seems to be the more problems with the brick. That would so we would keep the struts that are on the building, protecting keeping the brick in place, and then mounting on that would be a new facade, a steel facade to give the building a fresh look, and to keep any of the debris that may come off the building held together within that facade. So those are the 3 options, and they all are progressively, unfortunately, they're progressively more expensive because there's more work involved. The basic proposal would be to protect the building, number 1, which we think is at the very minimum something you should do, certainly to protect the residents and the public. Then we can go and start basically get a contractor to give us some pricing on installing these struts to further keep the building tight. And then in the future, next year, 2 years, 3 years, whenever you feel you have the capacity to do that, maybe put a new facade on the building. And you can do that in steps. You can do that one side at 1 year. And we've done this for other mostly condominium complexes, where they find that they have a certain budget that they can handle on an annual basis. So they phase these. So maybe the first year they do one section, the second year they do another section. We do a lot of this with roofing. Roofing becomes a big problem. So when you've got a lot of buildings, we replace roofing on an interval. So maybe 1 year you replace one roof or whatever. So those are our proposals.
Now, Pat, with B, with the metal strut,
Yeah.
that's sort of the step 1 to putting panels on.
Correct.
So it would not be a wasted effort. We could build upon that.
That is correct.
Financing becomes the
That's a very good
I want to
point.
make that very clear.
That's a very good point.
Because I don't want to do a piecemeal or stopgap and invest money in something that we're going to have to re-spend
Correct.
down the line.
And I should.
Let me interrupt you. No, that's good. That's why it's good. The study that we did on the building, as Pat indicated, we can't fasten anything to the brick because it's falling off. We can't fasten anything to the backup because it has insufficient structural strength. That's why we came up with the idea of spanning structure to structure, which is in place and solid. So the struts that we're proposing are designed to, one, act as the base for the second phase, the finished phase, but also to hold the brick in place. So once the struts are in place, the brick has been stabilized. There is no the likelihood of any brick failure lessens considerably, and now you have less of a liability. And what you've done is now preserve all of the facade in place, and it's stable. And at a time that's appropriate and that your budget will permit, you could do any elevation that you feel you need to do. If you wanted to do if you need to do the north because it's deteriorating later, once we put the struts up, we make, and it's possible, we may correct the north elevation to where you may pick any elevation at that particular point. The idea of the struts and the design that we've come up with, which is, by the way, the most cost-effective method of correcting the situation, because it doesn't remove the brick. And because we can't remove the brick, we can't remove the block, and once we remove the block, we've disturbed all of the apartment units. If this doesn't disturb any, this is all exterior work. It doesn't affect the interior at all. So your tenants are the only thing that the tenants will see is the workmen outside working on the project.
Yeah, the compromised part of the building is the fact that the exterior wall is really one wall. If you take the brick away, the interior wall will come with it. It's unfortunate, but that's the way the building was built.
I have a question.
Yes,
Using the struts would that help eliminate the water problem that would happen?
No.
No, what it will do will be to allow you to go back. Once the brick has been stabilized, you can make, we can do a temporary repair, like caulk the joints, because the brick is now stable. It's not gonna leak. If any water gets in behind the brick, there's a structural web that's outside that's holding the brick in place. So as I said before, the liability or the opportunity for the brick to disengage from the building has been reduced considerably by doing it, and it does allow once those struts are in, you can do minor repair. I would call it Band-Aid, because that's really what it is. It's really temporary. It's a temporary waterproofing to correct the brick. It's going to have a limited life to do it, but at least the major issue, which is the failure of the exterior, has been addressed.
Yeah, one of the
As soon as you put the panels up down the line, that would stop the water problem.
Right, once you put the, yes,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, one of the reasons why we recommended this steel panel system is because in as much as excuse me, you don't want to seal the exterior up, you want the brick to be able to breathe, okay? Because even though water gets into it, you want to be able for the water vapor to come out of the brick at some point. But then you don't want water to go back in. So the panel system, since there's airspace in between, will allow that to happen and keep more water from going in. Because once you allow the brick to saturate and hold the water there, that causes a whole other group of set of problems. Yeah.
Did you take a quick survey of the building in different rooms?
We actually, this is the part that we were commissioned to do. We actually did a scan, a surveying scan, electronic scan for the entire building. So we were able to, this is an engineering technique where we're able to identify up to a 1/16 of an inch on the facade. It's an electronic survey it actually scans the facade and gives us every deviation vertically and horizontally. That's it. So we have a very accurate survey and information that led us to develop these recommendations that we're proposing. So yes, we have that, and that scan obviously belongs to you. We have all the drawings for that, and that's what also helped us come up with the solution of the level of deterioration that's out there, and what happened, and what kind of cures that were available to us.
It's amazing. Have that equipment.
It is, it really, we've used it on, we use it on all our exterior now. Before it was binoculars and a pad. That we would do. Now it's done all electronically.
If you remember, we early on in the game walked around the building and you were doing visuals.
We were doing visuals. Right.
We always want to be proactive so that we get to the situation before it gets worse.
We use all state of the art, whatever is current. We've used drones to go up and photograph where we couldn't get access to the building. So whatever's available, we use. And it's interesting when all that information comes back. It's amazing, of the product that comes back that helps us make these decisions.
And it's not invasive. I mean,
It's not invasive.
It's not invasive, so there's no, there's no damage to the facade.
Are there any questions?
Any other questions even from you, if you want to open it up to the audience or whatever?
Well, if somebody has a question, otherwise we're going to take it under advisement and we'll discuss it. We'll come up with a consensus.
And we're available.
We're available. If you have any questions, we're happy to clarify any points that we can.
So one of the
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a good question.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second,
Okay.
Jen, okay?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So, one of the proposals that you talked about, you referred to as a Band-Aid. I mean, I don't think we need to be putting any Band-Aids on anything. If we're going to do this, we need to do it once, and we can do it right. And we have a building that, obviously looks dated as well. So, my opinion would be that we can get a new facade that makes the building look more modern and appeasable is the way we should go, assuming we can find the funding to do that. But so that's I just want to be clear, that's the alternate C.
And the alternate C only addresses one facade.
Right. But it does, that alternate C would be the facade that would encompass the entire building. And I'm happy to hear from you that you would like to see a more modern look to the building. And it would be state of the art.
Make a positive change.
It would make a very, absolutely, we've already envisioned what it's going to be looking like. And if the decision is to go to that alternative, or when the decision is made to go to that alternative, we'll be happy to, we're going to be creating a rendering for you, because whether you do one facade or 4 facades, you want to make sure that it's going to look like. And
Also, there's
provide that to
a
you.
variety of panel systems that we've looked at, investigated. So there's not one solution, but they all fall within the same cost factor, if you will.
Again, keeping in mind that if you only elect alternate 2, which is the base, that's the structure that the new facade is going to be attached to. So we have, that's it. There are a variety of different types of facades that we will be able to present to you that will be able to be attached to the subframe. Basically, it's a structural subframe that we're proposing.
We're not just going to give you the green one. Or the black one, or whatever. There's many options. Yeah.
Making a motion to open up to the public if they have any questions.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Speak now?
Yes.
This is just a quick question. when you, the first step, when you put the scaffold up, how much wind can it take? Because the north side, the winds are like a hurricane. Now, would anything be thrown down from a real strong wind on that scaffold?
Well, the scaffolding is, first of all, the scaffolding design meets basically New York City construction code. So it's probably the most stringent construction code in the country. So it would be anchored to the ground, and it would be braced against the building. The scaffolding is there basically to protect you from any falling debris.
Anything falling, right.
So it's not going to prevent stuff from falling, but it's going to prevent some from falling on top of you.
Yeah, it's just that the winds back there are unbelievable.
But the scaffolding is designed.
Whatever's on the scaffold, or even covering the sheets or whatever you're gonna put on it.
Won't be caught. It's like a
And
big,
the wind will blow
box that gets whatever debris comes down, falls on top of, and then will not be allowed to go onto the sidewalk.
Okay, that netting or whatever is gonna be strong enough to the heavy winds.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Okay, Joan, I guess you're on the north side, huh?
Yeah, right there, babe. It's terrible, the wind back there. And it's funny, the front, nothing, you didn't even think there's wind. It's weird the way it works.
You have water on this side, don't you?
Right, yeah.
So the chances are the wind is coming off the water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah,
But it's
as it's coming over
extremely
land,
strong.
it usually dies down.
My dog, when he's out there, he goes this way.
And that's where you're going to get your coldest wind as well, on that side.
It does.
Thank you.
Good question. Anyone?
Yes.
So are you going to mount the rails with concrete anchor bolts?
I'm sorry, who's speaking right now?
I'm sorry, Joe McAvoy, 700 Main Street.
Thank you.
Yes.
The rails will be mounted into the concrete floors with concrete anchor bolts?
Correct. There's a system, Hilti makes a system, which will drill into it.
Will you epoxy the entry?
It'll be epoxied into the
rock drill base so water
concrete.
doesn't get further in there?
Yeah.
All right.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Motion closed.
Yes.
Second. All in favor?
Send them home.
Alright, so next on our agenda is, excuse me, next on our agenda is resolution 2022-11, adoption of the budget, which we introduced back in August. So tonight we'll be formally adopting that, so we just need a motion. Commissioner Lynch? Yes. Commissioner Orchard?
Yes.
Commissioner Shara? Yes. Commissioner Ramey? Yes. Commissioner McCracken?
Yes.
Commissioner Casano? Yes. Commissioner Casserly?
Yes.
We will be going into executive session,
So we have resolution 2022-12, resolution authorizing executive session of contracts. I just need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Lynch?
Yes.
Commissioner Orchard?
Yes.
Commissioner Shara? Commissioner Ramey?
Yes.
Commissioner McCracken?
Yes.
Commissioner Casano?
Yes.
Commissioner Casserly?
Yes.
Everybody wait out in the lobby?
When we go executive session, that's just divorce. And that's when we will talk about it.
Well, we're dealing in contract, so people have to leave until we come out of executive session. We have to meet here, we have no other facility to meet in.
Want us to leave now? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay, tell us to get out. And then we're coming back in again?
Yeah.
And I also
Jake out.
I didn't know where you went. You stayed in, where were you? Where were you? I thought you went back to your Everyone looks good.
Oh, that's nice.
Commissioner Lynch? Yes.
Commissioner
Sharon?
Oh, Robert.
Commissioner Maney?
Yes.
Commissioner McCracken?
Yes.
Commissioner Masato?
Yes.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that we told.
Did you stop?
Everybody take a minute to review this bill.
Nice having you, Jay. She never put in the paper down here, that's why. Just have your blood all down.
That's right. That's what I would do.
You can't sing juice for everyone. He's a
Not
good.
satisfactory. The company maintains that.
What I said, see, everybody is up there. They saw it.
Paul, could you just please, for the benefit of everybody, elaborate on what you were discussing there, so.
Well, a question was asked about a bill for elevator inspection. And what it is, it's conducted by the Department of Community Affairs, and it's required annually. It's $450 for the inspector to review both elevators. And I think I alluded to earlier that July 27th, I believe, they came this year and we got satisfactory on both elevators. So it's a fee we pay every year. And we also have a contract with a company that comes in monthly and services the elevators.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm making a motion to approve bills to be paid.
Second.
How's your son like to do, Joe?
Commissioner Lynch?
Yes.
Commissioner Orchard? Yes. Commissioner Shara? Yes. Commissioner Tedesco? Oh my God. Commissioner Rainey?
Yes. Where are you focusing on that, Amy? Come on now, baby.
You know what?
You have some,
Commissioner McCracken?
yes.
Commissioner Misano?
Yes.
Commissioner Casserly?
Yes.
I don't know how that's on there. Blackburn's on here too, though.
It is?
Yeah, I don't know.
And we have a typo down below.
Yeah, that's what she.
That's what I just wrote. Yeah. So now you're recording.
Okay. From the executive director.
Okay, we're going to occur 2 vacancies coming up in the next month, 2 units. At that point, we'll go in, we'll renovate, rehab, whatever needs to be done. We have 2 people on the waiting list that have been on quite a while, Belmar residents, who are in line for the 2 units. I can't discriminate. There's a sign-up sheet in case anybody missed in the elevator. We have the visiting nurses coming back on Wednesday, October 12th, between 9 and 12 to give the new booster shot. So if you're so inclined to get a booster shot, please sign up on the sheet so we can give them an accurate count about how much vaccine they're going to need. Last time I looked, there were 15 names on it. That was, I think, yesterday. So if you want the shot, please sign up, because if they bring limited vaccine, you're not going to be able to get it if you haven't signed up. As brought up at the last meeting, an emergency management plan has been updated. Just to highlight it, 3 people on the team, the management team, will now be contacting the police, the borough administrator, and the emergency management official during any type of emergency. Next, there was a letter distributed to all 50 units in the building on 9/20. They were either put under the doorway or out in front of the door. And I haven't been able to ascertain who has, if anybody will take responsibility for it, who distributed that letter throughout the building.
I didn't get anywhere.
Well, I guess that person's not going to vote. I got a quote, first quote for the generator for the new transfer switch. The price seems appropriate, but we are going to get a second company in to also bid on it. What the transfer switch does is that in the event of a power outage, it automatically starts the generator. Right now we have a bad switch, which requires when the battery is charged, which it wasn't the last occurrence, it will allow a person to start it manually. Mike knows how to do it and I know how to do it. But we put in new batteries. some common areas on the first floor and some emergency hallway lighting upstairs. It doesn't do the whole building. A number of years ago, we were given a surplus generator from the Army, in which at that time, the mayor at the time took great credit for getting these generators into town. I think he got 4 or 5 of them. He designated one to the Housing Authority, and subsequently got a grant, taxpayer money, to put the transfer hookups on each building to use for the generator. We've never seen the generator on our property. It's in the borough yard. I think it has a yellow painted X on it. And I've been told by the borough that the generator won't work here. So all that hoopla about getting free generators and then spending taxpayer money for a switch never panned out. If that had worked, we probably would have had to back up at that time. I'm going to discuss next meeting. We have so many things, but a representative from MHI Consultants, of whom Christine is here tonight, came and did a courtesy initial inspection of our elevators, looked at the control panels, and has given us a proposal, and we'll take it up the next meeting, about them coming in, doing a full evaluation of both elevators, and recommendations of what we can do to upgrade it and replace it, whatever needs to be done. So that'll come up on the agenda of the next meeting. And finally, I'd like to thank the people that did show up for the 9/11 service that we had in front of the building. It's always a very nice and somber ceremony, and I appreciate when people come down for something like that. And that's the end of my report.
Any old business? Any new business?
Yeah, we have resolution 2022-13. Something else to mention.
Next weekend.
So we make a motion as amended to the acting.
Can you speak up? We can't hear you back here. Thank you.
Resolution 2022-13, resolution appointing Paul DeSantis as acting executive director for the Belmar Housing Authority. Contract to follow. So you're making that motion, Aaron? Do we have a second? Commissioner Lynch?
Yes.
Commissioner Orchard?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharrock?
Yes.
Commissioner Rainey?
Yes.
Commissioner McCracken?
Yes.
Commissioner Lozano?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor.
Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner Casserly?
Report from the commissioners, report. Remarks from the general public.
And reminding the State Tribune.
Yes. You have a question or a remark, you have to give your name and your address. Okay.
Madam Chairman, would like to just make a comment from the public. At a council meeting, which they're waiting to start, and I was thinking I'd start without me, so I can stay for another 10 minutes or so, and I have to excuse myself.
Okay. Sharon Mahoney, 800 Main Street. I was here at the last meeting, and since then I've been diving deep into rabbit holes, doing a bunch of research about HUD regulations, rules, like, what's happening in this building, meeting with a bunch of people. So I do have some questions for the commissioners. So as I understand the process, HUD sends money to Belmar, Belmar sends money to the housing authority, correct? Or it flow, okay, so explain to me how the money comes down.
The money is sent to the housing authority, but the borough is not an intermediary because we're not part of borough government.
Okay, so it comes straight to you?
Yes.
Okay. And then, but the mayor and council appoint the commissioners who are sitting on this board. Okay, so how are they, he's shaking his head no.
No, I'm happy to, may I? Yeah.
Okay,
I was appointed by Governor Christie.
I knew one was appointed, okay.
Okay, and that was prior to my most recent one, appointed by Lieutenant Governor Oliver.
Okay. But everyone else is by the mayor and council, correct? Okay.
Yes, and the mayor and council usually designates one council person as a representative, one board.
Which is Mr. McCarthy. Okay. Who oversees the executive director? Do the commissioners oversee the executive director? As far as making sure that those, like, job responsibilities are also in compliance? Who's responsible for that? You're saying yes? Okay. And does the executive director currently have a contract with BHA?
Yes.
Okay, a formal contract?
No, not yet. Oh, no.
No.
Initially, I was hired under a resolution which lasted for 1 year. Through the oversight of I guess, the council, since that time I've been a month-to-month employee.
Okay, but this appointment tonight, what is that for?
This is for a resolution to appoint me as acting director, and following that will be a contract
And how long is the acting director period?
until the contract's presented.
And does anybody know what that time frame is?
Probably a month, 2 months.
Who is in charge of receiving requests that are submitted through the website? On the website homepage, or the contact page, there's a form on there where you put your name, your email, and request.
I get those.
Okay, and who's responsible for replying to the people who submit the request?
I generally respond. Most of them are about people wanting to apply here, and I have to tell them that our application process is closed.
I've submitted several requests through that form, and I've not received one reply.
Well, you also submitted it to the borough, and I believe the borough administrator is going to respond by tomorrow.
That's because I did not get response for some of the stuff here.
Well,
So,
under Oprah, there's a time frame.
Well,
It doesn't have to be immediate.
that's the question is, if it's Oprah, then does it have to go through the borough to get documents from here?
I can
Is
tell
that
you, I
one
did
process?
respond to the one. I did respond to the first
I
one.
didn't receive anything back. Okay.
I responded through the websites, replied.
And something may not be working because I got nothing back.
Okay, I mean, I can go probably pull it up and show you that.
You might want to test it on yourself, like just send a request and see how that works, because I got nothing back. Yeah. But I did go back and check, because a bunch of them were requests for meeting minutes and things like that, documents that were missing from the website.
And that was.
So
my
I went back and checked, and then
response.
were finally updated, but I never received her email reply. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, who is in charge of the website and information that's provided on the website, per HUD guidelines?
I update the website with the meeting minutes and everything.
But as far as anything else that's supposed to be on the website, per HUD, who's responsible for that?
I guess you could say I am.
Okay. Per the Internet Website Certification, page 6 of the 2021-2022 budget document, there are several non-compliant and missing items on the website. Paul signed off on this document. There are 4 items on this web certification that are missing from the website.
You signed off?
You did.
Well, please refer to Mr. DeSantis. I don't know you that well.
Okay. Mr. Substantis signed off on this. Authority rules, regulations, and official policy statements. This is missing. There's a notice. This also applies to the statement that's in the agenda, where the Open Public Meetings Act is supposed to be setting forth the time, date, location, agenda of the meeting. What newspapers do you send them to? Because it's not on the Co-Star. I don't see the meetings posted anywhere else. I had to find out from somebody here when this next meeting was.
Meeting schedule's posted.
At the beginning of the year.
But it says in here that's supposed to be posted. You have in your guidelines that it's posted, it's sent to the newspapers. It says it right in your agenda, and it's not.
Yeah, it's sent to the newspaper at the beginning of the year, the resolution, they'll post all the dates.
Okay, they're not, the newspapers aren't printing them then. So that's something that needs to be followed up on.
But we actually publish the resolution that we adopt at the beginning of the year in the Co-Star at the beginning of the year.
But if you notice in the Co-Star, the Belmar council meetings are posted in the Belmar section every single week. But there's never been anything about the, at least I haven't found anything about the BHA meetings. So,
Well, there's other meetings, Harbor Commission meetings aren't posted.
I'm speaking directly to the BHA right now, so I don't know anything about those. Per the website certification, name, mailing address, electronic mailing address, and phone number of every person who accesses day-to-day supervision or management over for all the operation of the authority is supposed to be posted on there. Who are these people? Is that Mr. DeSantis? Is that Mr. Carr? That information, there's no information on there with an email address and phone number directly to that person.
I get a link from the Belmar Housing Authority, so anything that's posted on that website, I have a Gmail account.
What I'm saying is, per HUD regulations, that Gmail account is supposed to be on that page, on the website, along with the phone number directly to you, which if that's the right general number, that's fine.
That's a general number.
Yeah, so the email address is missing from that information. A list of attorneys, advisors, consultants, and any other person, firm, business, partnership, corporation, organization that received any remuneration of $17,500 or more is supposed to be posted on the website as well. That I don't see. There's also a penalty provisions regarding this stuff missing. So, I mean, I can address that separately with HUD. Okay. Per HUD, and I did speak with Melissa Bennett. She called me a couple weeks ago because I did reach out to her with some questions. The BHA is the housing authorities are supposed to ensure that residents reside in decent, safe, and sanitary housing. They have the right to live in decent, safe, sanitary housing that is free from environmental hazards, including lead-based paint. That's just copy and paste. There are several items on this property. I believe the trailer with the boat is still out there. That's against our ordinance. And I mentioned that to Mr. Carr the last time I was here. He said he knew nothing about it, but it is not allowed, as well as a truck that's up on blocks. An inoperable vehicle is not allowed on any property in Belmar. Not just this property, but any property in Belmar. So there's an abuse of power going on there. People are using this as dumping ground. Let's see. Application and occupancy policy. Do all residents receive a copy of this? Because that document that's on the website is really hard to read. Half the pages are turned sideways. There are exhibits in there that are missing. They're not even referenced. It says exhibit blank. So I don't know who's responsible for that document or if every resident gets it, but I couldn't read it and my eyes are fine.
Are you going to apply? Is that why you're looking?
No, I'm looking, I'm trying to see if you're in compliance with HUD, that's what I was looking into. Per section 508, which everybody should know about, it does not meet compliance. I don't see a copy of the grievance procedure that's also mentioned in that A&O policy. I did find the one on the PHOG website, which is the Public Housing Occupancy Guide. All residents should have a copy of that, or should be able to get a copy of that.
It's in the lease.
Does everybody have a copy of grievance procedures with their lease?
I don't have any grievance, I don't need it.
I'm just a question. Are residents required, it's actually required, are residents provided a copy of the HUD resident rights and responsibilities as a courtesy? Suggestion. House rules. There is a HUD smoke-free rule, FR 5597-F-03, requiring that each public housing agency implement smoke-free policy by August 3rd, 2018, where smoking is prohibited indoors and not within 25 feet of the building. Every time I've come over here, I've had to walk through a wave of marijuana, and I'm not walking 25 feet from the building. So that's
No,
something
it smells.
that's not in compliance. Per HUD, residents have the right to have repairs performed in a timely manner upon request. We know that's not being done.
How do we know that's not being done? I'm sorry.
Per the residents that I've been speaking to.
You haven't spoken to me, I think it's being done.
It was alleged a work order was put in, no such work order was ever submitted. Okay?
How are work orders submitted?
They're filled out and handed in the office.
Okay,
And the person in question also said that she had a date and a time, which was an outright lie. She never had a date and a time from our super to make that repair. Okay? I know what you're referring to.
you don't have to be rude, Mr. DeSantis.
I'm not
asking a
being rude,
question.
I'm stating the facts, and I'd like to get home and have dinner before morning.
So these residents are not of concern to you?
No,
That's what it sounds
I
like.
did not say that. Let me just
Certainly
summarize
part of
with
the
that.
problem, not part of the solution.
If the worst thing in this building is a little bit of deterioration in the back of a vanity with the door closed, I think the building is pretty good then. We're not talking about roaches, we're not talking about rats, we're not talking about lack of heat, we're not talking about hot water. I think basically this place is a clean and pleasant place to live.
Then I urge you to live here for a month, in that exact apartment. HUD inspections,
I don't
last
qualify
time,
to make too many.
I understand HUD inspections are being done by the executive director and the superintendent. There's no accountability above that.
There's no HUD, we don't do a HUD inspection. As per HUD, we make an annual inspection of each unit. HUD determines when they make their inspection. The last inspection they made was 4 years ago. We scored 98 out of 100 points, which classifies us as a high performer. Thank you, Bruce. In which case HUD doesn't come back as quickly as they ordinarily would.
All right, so you referenced that you make too much money.
I was just making that.
Yeah.
I don't qualify under the income.
So this is public knowledge because this isn't a resolution. Your salary is $40,000,
We
$945.
don't talk personnel issues here, okay?
That is a resolution.
No,
That is,
we don't
okay, look
talk
it up.
personnel, period.
It is 2021-11 is the name of the resolution.
No, we don't talk personnel.
And
Anybody else have a question? Because
yes.
we're not
I
going to
don't.
sit here all night.
Building superintendent job requirements and responsibilities. To maintain a calm, positive, professional manner in dealing with tenants, family members, visitors, vendors, and other staff at all times. Not from what I've heard.
Well, did you
He
witness
kind of
anything?
attacked me outside last time I was here. There are a lot of issues, including why are the residents required to have coins to use the washers? They have to go to the bank to get coins to use the washers. Is there another solution you can find? You know?
Yeah, credit card. We put in a machine where you scan your credit card.
That's what they've been asking for.
And actually, during the pandemic, I also like to mention it, we went to the bank and got rolls of quarters, and we actually gave out change for people that needed it, because they didn't want to go out of the building during the pandemic.
But then it stopped after the pandemic.
Yes, because we're not a bank.
I'd also like to ask why the seating has not been returned to the lobby.
2 reasons. First of all, the tenants were given two warnings about congregating there during the pandemic without masks and not abiding by the 6-foot rule. They were congregating down there, sitting on top of each other with no mask. After the second time, we removed the chairs. The second reason for it is there's been a history and a practice of a group of residents that sat down there and would make rude and mean comments to people coming into the building, particularly new residents,
That's not true.
in an unwelcoming way.
That's not true.
And so the venom that they were spewing, the other tenants didn't need to have that. And there were several new tenants that came to me and reported that people were making rude and inappropriate comments. So it's not a question of seating. We have this large room with plenty of seats where tenants can gather and socialize.
The morale of the people is down since the chairs are out of there. That I can tell you. Maybe you didn't notice, but we all noticed.
It's not going to change.
Okay? I'll take it further. Go over your head, Paul. Go over your head. I'm sorry.
I'm Bob Venick, I'm in 2C. This whole thing seems to have stemmed from the fact that the electric company lost one phase of the three-phase power system. If we had a brand new generator and a brand new transfer switch, it would not have worked. This is unprecedented. Never in the history that I've ever heard of has the electric company lost only one phase and had the other two phases going. The transfer switch would not have noticed that and would have kept the two phases on and burned up the elevator. It was not a fault of anybody here or anywhere else. It was a dire situation. It happened and people were hurt by it and nobody had any idea that something like that could happen. That was completely unprecedented. And I see everybody's taking blame for it and it's wrong.
Act of God.
What? The other thing I want to say is this. I was homeless when I came here. Whatever she said is wrong. I asked for an application, I got it within an hour. It was handed to me here when I was here. Filled it out. I had to wait 3 weeks. I got an apartment, and I'm very happy here. I couldn't afford anything else. I don't expect it to be a brand new, wonderful building. For the price I'm paying, I'm very, very pleased. And thank you very much. I hate to see all the dissident and people getting mad and angry and trying to blame somebody for something that was unprecedented and nobody had any idea it would happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Yes?
Jim Bean, 612 16th Avenue. The owner of a building, his tenants are his customers. And sometimes, well, in this building here, it's owned by the taxpayer. And it kind of feels, when I'm talking to residents, that the management of the building...
Are you a resident or are you speaking as an...
I'm sorry, I'm talking to the council.
I'm asking you a question.
Mr. Sanchez, who runs this meeting? Thank you. So, what I ask is, as the managers of the building, these tenants are your customers. And sometimes when you talk to them, it doesn't feel like they're actually customers. It feels like they work for the management, not the management works for them.
How do you reason that?
Well, the chairs in the lobby, I mean, a lot of people, I've heard that a bunch of times, they like them. But there's a reason that management got rid of them, okay? And if saying rude and mean comments is a reason to get rid of things, we should, some of the mean, rude things in this meeting, some of the people in this meeting should probably go. But I guess they're the customers. They want to sit downstairs. Of course, they can't make fun of people, but they should be allowed to sit where they want. They're the customer. If you're in a restaurant and they don't like your food, you don't yell at them and take away their chairs and say, get out, get out. You try to make your customer happy. That's all I want to say. The tenants are the customer, and you guys are the managers to try to work with them. Can't make everybody happy, but you can at least try.
Can I ask you a question?
No, you cannot, sir.
Because you're the one that put the letters under the door.
Names on it.
Yes, names on it, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, just 3 points I'd like to make. The first question I have is, why does it take so long to put a light bulb in? It took 35 days for Mike to put a light bulb in at the 6th floor in front of the elevator. The new light bulb is sitting in a box leaning against the wall for 32 days. To me, that is not acceptable.
Let me ask you a question. Was that the light bulb or the fixture? Because we blew out a bunch of ballast in the lighting fixtures when the power surged. It could have been the whole fixture. And we had to wait at Home Depot because they didn't have the number we needed. Okay? That's what happened. If that's what I'm thinking of.
Okay. I have another question. Perfect example today, it just happened with the people, the contract people talking about the building and so forth. It would have been a good idea to have posted an agenda ahead of time so that tenants would be aware what's going to happen at the meeting.
That's a
So
very good
that
suggestion.
maybe they don't want to sit through an hour of this guy talking about the building and then waiting for the executive meeting to be over with. So I think that's very important. Communication is very essential between the Belmar Housing Authority and the tenants. It's so important. If you're going to have communication, this is where a lot of misinformation arises. Okay?
That's a
All
good
right,
suggestion,
one more
Miss,
thing.
and we will post in the future before the meeting.
Commissioners, to the commissioners, I have a question. Have any of you taken the initiative to look up grants for elevator funding?
I have. I've reached out to HUD. There was one grant that we didn't qualify for after reviewing it. Myself, Amy, and our accountant reviewed the application, and we didn't qualify. I've also contacted Congressman Smith's office to ask for possible financial assistance to make some upgrades. But really, the first step is going to be to get an expert company to come in and make the recommendations for what we need done. Whether it can be modernized or whether it has to be completely overhauled. And we're in the process of doing that now.
Okay, because I've been in touch with Department of Community Affairs. They have a safety elevator unit that offers grants for elevator resources to seek out funding for elevators. I just want to share this information with you. Okay? The other thing, one more thing. Let me see. Oh, okay, one more thing. The last, I think this is very important. If the commissioners will come up with a handbook for tenants that includes information in the case of emergency, who to fire in your room, if the elevator breaks down, what to do, who to contact, post phone numbers, include the Office of Emergency Management. Also, the local Red Cross is very, very willing to help out. If you ever have a crisis like we had a month ago, they would be very willing to come over and help the tenants while the power is out. Okay, I did a lot of research this past month. Okay, I contacted Congressman Chris Smith, Senator Robert Singer, Freehold Commissioners and Freehold Commissioners, Lieutenant Cheryl Oliver. All these people, I'm trying to get information out to them so that they know that we need elevators here. We need 2 elevators here. Okay, so I'm trying to move forward. I just want to let you know that.
Christine, you want to make a comment since you're our expert elevator person? Just to introduce yourself about the news.
Hi, I'm Christine Workman. I own an elevator consulting firm, and I am a New Jersey building inspector as well. So I worked for years at Otis Elevator. I worked for years at Kone Elevators. So I worked out in the field, done a lot of work with, and now I'm doing a project at Montclair, the Montclair Seniors, and Atlantic City, one of their senior housing. It's a HUD building as well. So I'm familiar with a lot of the processes. But what I did, I came out and I called Paul after I saw kind of the postings on Facebook and said, can I just come over, no charge? Let me see what you have. Let me see your situation. Because my mother-in-law lived here for years, Lillian Coglin.
Oh,
Yeah, so Lillian was, and I was in this building all the time.
We love you.
Yes. My brother-in-law Kevin is here now. So, my son was in this building all the time with his grandmother.
Yes. Is your son Matthew?
Yeah.
No, Matthew.
Matthew's in Florida now. He lived through the hurricane.
He was so tiny.
He's 18 now. He drove his Jeep to Florida. But, so what I did, I looked at it, and the elevators, honestly, the elevators you have are hitting kind of the end of their normal life expectancy. There's nothing ridiculously wrong with them. There's nothing that, looking at it, you know, to walk in and say, oh my God, what's going on here? And I looked at it and I went, okay, these are IBM relays. This stuff is becoming obsolete. It's time to upgrade. And whether or not that means doing a full-blown replacement, whether it's modernizing the controllers and all of the fixtures. So once, you know, I said to Paul, let me send you something officially on the books. But I did want to come out last week or 2 weeks ago and just look at it and make sure I'd still get in the elevator. I'd still put my kid in the elevator. I really wouldn't worry. Yes, it's at the end of its life, but it doesn't mean it's an emergency. It doesn't mean it's not a disaster waiting to happen.
Would you share your comment about the time frame?
Yeah, so just so you know, once you do decide to modernize an elevator, from the time that the contract is signed, it's during good times when there's no issues with getting deliveries and procurement, it's 20 weeks. So that's 5 months before they can start. And that's typical. Yeah, you would do one at a time, absolutely. And that's actually, with this, it's good because they're both completely different, separate controls. The passenger elevator is hydraulic. The freight elevator, the service elevator, is a roped hydraulic elevator. So they are two totally, completely separate controls. It's not like it's a duplex where there'd have to be a time frame where they'd both be out for a day or two. That won't happen. And the nice thing is, once you start modernizing, you have a team here, the mechanic and the helper that are here, working on the elevator full-time. So God forbid anything does happen to the other elevator, they're kind of here right there to fix it. They're on site. But it's going to be a process. I mean, it'll probably be a year from now when it gets done. So we always say to people, modernize the elevator on your time frame, not on the elevator's time frame. So this kind of was a blessing in disguise that this happened, because now you're looking at doing the repair while your elevators are both working. So it's not like, oh, one of them's out, we need to modernize that one now, and it's not going to be working for the 5 months while you're waiting on parts. Because that's the other thing, we say to people, do it while the elevators are working, because if you do it, and we do see this all the time where people band-aid it, and they push it and push it and push it, and now all of a sudden the elevator's down, and you can't do anything. Now it's like, well, now we only have one elevator, and you're only going to have one elevator for a full year. Once they start doing the work, it goes fast. It's maybe a 5-week process to get the thing done from beginning to end. It's just the waiting game of getting the parts stinks.
Just one final question. What did you think of the time frame of 22 hours elevators being down?
With a power failure and with the generator not being up, that's kind of normal. That's actually kind of normal with nobody being called and brought in. And I mean, I used to work in Cedar Grove up by Wayne, and they had a huge flood there in the building, and they called me and said, the elevators aren't working. I said, yeah, they're electric elevators and the building has flooded and there's no power. I'm not sure what you want me to do. I can drive up there from Belmar and stand there and tell people that there is no power to the building, so there's no power to the elevator. So I don't know, how long did you guys not have power to the building? It was a couple of hours, right? So it was a couple of hours.
I think it was from 3 to 7.
So it's similar to like when your computer goes down, because your elevators are driven by a computer. When the power comes back onto the building, the elevators don't always automatically come back on. An elevator company sometimes has to come and turn them on. So if nobody called the elevator company and said to them, the elevators are down and it's due to a power failure, and then they get here and certain things have fried, it's like not having a power surge protector. It's, they have these old IBM relays, which you can still get. They're becoming a little harder to get and becoming obsolete. But the 22 hours is kind of, unfortunately, it's kind of normal when this happens.
We didn't know the elevators were bad until the power came back on.
Well, that's what happens. It comes on, and all of a sudden, it's like you bring your car to Jiffy Lube. I got my oil changed. you drive out and you run over a nail. My car, how come my car doesn't work? Well, the car works, but you just ran over a nail. Okay, we replaced the tire. Okay, so when we put it down, now, oh shoot, a rock kicked up and hit your brake light. Now your brake light doesn't work. So it's these weird, and I've had elevator mechanics when I worked at Otis sit in front of a controller for 3 hours watching the elevator controller going, oh, it's on the 6th floor when somebody holds the door open button too long and this, and you don't know because it's not, they just sit there and troubleshoot. So it's horrible, but there's more than 400 moving parts on those elevators. So any one of them goes bad or goes wrong, it can shut the elevator down and nobody knows till they've troubleshot every piece and part.
Thank you.
Very informative.
I wish I had better news. I wish it was much better.
Hopefully there'll be more air in them too, because they smell.
They're vented to the outside. It's tough in this time of year because it's very humid out. So
My daughter won't get on it because she says it smells.
Smells like a cigar box.
Yeah.
No smoke.
Is there any other comments or questions? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Sherry Russo, 1218 Briarwood Road in Belmar. Once again, in case people didn't remember, I'm a community police block captain. I just have a few comments. I don't have any questions. One of them is I feel very saddened and upset that this was held on a Jewish holiday. I think that is unfair to certain people that perhaps wanted to come but had to choose between their religion and important senior citizens. I think that is unfair, and I think it's 2022, and I think that, in a sign of the times, whether or not you agree with other people's religions or not, that's just the way things are these days. Also, I wanted to say that I'm a landlord, and I get COs and whatever it is I need, permits. And had I owned what I saw in the pictures, I would never have passed. And I find that very sad. And in fact, my tenants would have gotten their rent back if that's what my units look like. And nobody's told me here that the pictures were doctored up or that they weren't really real pictures. So when I looked at them, I feel that that's very, very unfortunate that it's okay to treat seniors like that. But the rest of us in the world that have to get a CO for our apartments would never have passed. So I also feel that, as we all know, I'm sure some people here are on Facebook, and that water is very expensive in Belmar. In fact, one of my friends commented to me saying that it's cheaper to buy bottled water than it is to run your tap. So one of the things I read was about a flapper on a toilet that was leaking. And I don't exactly know how money works here. I didn't do as much research anywhere near as the amazing researcher that we had up here speaking before. But I'm sure all of us general people of the regular community understand that, paying for water, that money could have been put elsewhere. I understand that, here it seems to take an extremely long time to go to Home Depot to get a light. It seems to take a long time to fix everything. But the rest of the landlords in Belmar have a time frame that they have to do that in, or money will be given back to their tenants. So I don't think it's fair that things happen differently here. Now, whether or not it's because people can't afford an attorney, or it's a money situation, or it's a senior situation, or some people, maybe have an issue where people don't think they're as smart as other people. I think all of that is just too bad. If you choose to be a part of a building situation, we live in America, and this is our choice what we took for jobs. And we live in America, and this is our choice what we want to do. And so my grandparents were in senior housing, as was my favorite aunt. And, there weren't these situations. I went to see my grandparents every single week, and I remember people fixing things right away, not that things went on and on and on. And my grandparents have been, passed for a while now, and so that was years ago. You'd think things would have gotten better over time and not worse. But anyways, I just find that this is just too bad and unfortunate. And I I think I'm sorry that we're holding you up and that you don't get to have dinner at your time that you wanted to. You know, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if you were the person who was on call 24/7, and you know that my comment is inconvenient to you because I don't live here or because you don't get to eat dinner on time. I'm very sorry about that. I feel for you, you know, and that if I don't address you with the correct prefix, you know, it's unfortunate that this is what goes on, and it's unfortunate that these are things to be said, whether or not, you know, it's a money issue of, again, of people not having an attorney, or people not having a loud enough voice, or people not being able to band together, you know, and I want to thank you all for my time.
Okay. We're going to close